GarageBand, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly, GarageBand Weekly. Oh, oh, oh. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Welcome into GarageBand Weekly here on Studio Live today. My name is Pete Johns, and for the next hour or so, we're going to be talking all things GarageBand or maybe Logic Pro for iPad. But I got some news on that, so don't stress out. If you're a GarageBand user, like someone who emailed me this week and said, could you stop with the Logic Pro already, get back to GarageBand? Well, I got some good news for you coming up soon. Am I on camera audio? I mentioned it's been a long week. Let's try that again from the top, shall we? The best laid plans are always good. See, the thing is, you wouldn't have heard any of the beautiful, the wonderful studio piano sounds of the Logic Pro studio pianos. That's what we're talking about here on this week's GarageBand Weekly. We're talking about the studio piano that sounds much better than my a cappella singing directly through the camera. I can assure you of that. Yeah, it's been one of those weeks, as you can tell by my voice, still not 100%. As you can tell by my internet, still not 100%. Oh man, it's been one of those weeks, but we're going to push through. We're going to get through it, and we're going to cross our fingers and our toes and hope that everything works out all right. Yes, if you'd like more of this and you'd like to help me make sure that I get everything back on track, health-wise and gear-wise and technology-wise, you can become a channel member. You can support me by joining at the Patreon there, and yes, you can help keep me in lozenges and tissues to make sure that everything is good in the hood. Alrighty, we are going to dive in and look at the studio piano in just a jiffy. So we've got that all set up and ready to go, which you didn't really hear my original opening. It probably sounded very interesting. The quality of audio will just improve throughout the show. But we do want to let you know that we are brought to you, as we are each and every week, by my GarageBand guide, which is not actually a guide because that's someone else has got the trademark on that. It's my FAQ. StudioLiveToday.com/GarageBand is the place to go if you want to find out everything you need to know about GarageBand. And you can even go to LogicIPad.com. If you're a Logic person, if you wear your Logic Pro on your hat like me, then you can check out LogicIPad.com. That's another place you can go. Yeah, I wish that were true, Clayton Von Kluge. All audio holds some level of charm, doesn't it? Well, yeah, exactly. If I listen to the kids and what they're creating these days, even audio that's horribly clipping and compressed is apparently okay. It's what you do, you. And I'll do me, and we'll all be good. But yeah, we'll get through this. We'll get through the rest of this week together, and then we'll be good to go. I'm just trying to get up some information here. My finder on my Mac. There she is. Because I did have a little video here to show you my setup, which we'll have a look at in a little bit. But why don't we dive into some news and notes, because there's been a lot going on. Finally, there's been a lot going on in the world of GarageBand and Apple-related stuff. Sort of. You may, first of all, I want to give you some good news. I mentioned some good news at the start, and I want to mention the good news here. Next week, we're back to GarageBand. Yes, my favorite movie of all time is Back to the Future, the whole trilogy, but especially number 2, which is why I've got the number 2 poster there. Probably going to get in copyright trouble, so go over and throw a like on that one and set a reminder for it before I have to change the thumbnail. For who is it? Universal? Yeah, they'll probably come at me and put I don't know. I've never had a copyright claim or a strike against a thumbnail, but I'm sure there's a first time for everything. Yes, great Scott. It's heavy. It's super heavy. So that's coming up next week. We'll be going back into GarageBand for all the folks. And look, it hasn't been that many. There's only been a couple of people that have said, could you stop with the Logic? And I'm like, here's a hint for you. You don't have to watch everything. It's a channel. I know. It's a channel for a reason. You don't have to watch every single thing that I produce because I wouldn't want to. And I'm me. And I like me. I like what I produce, but I wouldn't want to watch everything. Especially, when I start a thing and I'm on the wrong camera audio. Yeah, and it's because I tried to restart my computer before I started that it reset the audio. So I was trying to do the right thing, and it made it the wrong thing. We'll get back. We'll get back into the groove. Down there in the news and notes, you'll also see that I have my WWDC recap. So we've been talking for weeks and weeks about what will Apple announce at WWDC. Well, they announced a few things. They announced iOS and iPadOS 18. And if you missed last week's show, I went through all of the details. In fact, it was on the podcast, wasn't it? I went through iPadOS 18 and showed you all the things you can and can't do. So the bad news for folks that were really looking forward to getting the new AI features and the new Siri is that they're not available yet and probably won't be available until September at the earliest. The word we're getting at now is it won't even be fully available. The beta versions of this sort of stuff will start around the time of iPhone 16, so we're talking September, meaning that, don't hold your breath for this stuff. And if you missed the announcement, Apple basically said, all that AI BS that everyone else is doing with chat bots and image generators and music generators, that's not helping the average person on the daily. So Apple have gone a different direction and they've said, we're going to use Apple Intelligence. Yes, they completely Sherlocked it and rebranded it Apple Intelligence. And you can use your Apple Intelligence to actually do things. So to make sure that, your Bing Bong, sorry, I keep saying the S word, your Bing Bong is actually going to work correctly. Oh, did you know? It got hidden in the weeds, but apparently you can now rename your Bing Bong to something else, which means it's going to be even worse. Because if you actually call it Bing Bong, like I suggest, then it's going to be actually triggering all the time. So I don't know about that. So, there's some new features with iOS and iPadOS 18. Are any of them earth-shattering that you should rush out and get? No. Unless you are completely intent on doing something like this and getting your icons nice and big without the text in the background, or you'd really love to edit and customize your screen and do something weird and wacky like make all of your icons go red because they go faster. They're the sort of things that you can do with iOS and iPadOS 18. Outside of that, there's not a heap. There's a few quality of life things that are coming. RCS messaging, which means that you and your Android, your green bubble friends are going to be able to communicate a little bit more effectively. The cool satellite features. So your satellite's not just for emergency now. You can actually message your friends if you're out in the woods and off the grid and you just want to say, hey, I'm doing well, or what's the hockey score, or something like that. So there's some good things. But what do we say with all these updates? Don't do the betas or the betas, however you like to say it. Let people like me, let idiots like me put it on our devices so that we can get all the crashes and all the bugs and all the problems. So don't do the beta versions. And when it comes out, is 18.0 the time to update? Let's do a quick straw poll. Hands up who's going to update on day one. When iPadOS and iOS come out, 18.0 on day one, who's updating? If you put your hand up, shame. No, you can if you want to, but especially if you're working on a project. And here's the thing. iOS and iPadOS 18 usually come out in September. And what are a lot of us in this community doing in September? We're doing Songtember, baby. We're making a song. We're recording. We're creating. We're releasing a song in the month of September. Is that the time to update to a 0.0, a 0.0 update? No. If anything, you should wait for 0.1, which, as Jade Star says here, is usually around Christmas time. So give them that 3 months to get everything right, because there will be some issues. You'll be using some app that's worked for you perfectly forever, and it suddenly won't work. That off-brand USB connector that you've been using for 3 years will suddenly get bricked, and then you'll come crying to John's. I know it's sad, it sucks, but don't do it. So WWDC, iOS and iPadOS 18, updates to Bing Bong, and some AI, some Apple Intelligence stuff coming. Outside of that, not a whole lot. Anything for creators? Not really. The one thing I'm most excited about is you get to change your little things down the bottom here, your little quick access things away from the flashlight and the camera. So you can make that. I wonder if you could just make that GarageBand. If I could just open GarageBand with that button, because let's be honest, when I'm using my phone, it's often to capture ideas in GarageBand to use later. So maybe that would be a good thing to do. Yeah, or you could just throw Koala Sampler on there. So you could sample, you could do your sampling on the go whenever you need to. Absolutely. All right. What else do we have? The iPad Pro M4. I've been using it now for a couple of weeks. So that was the sort of, I know there's been so many updates, it's kind of hard to keep up, isn't it? So I've been using the iPad Pro M4 for a couple of weeks. It is going really well. It is not, here's the honest thing, and I'm doing an update to my iPad guide later this week. So keep an eye out for that, where I'm going to update my recommendations. Because if you go over there now, and I have linked to it down below, if you want to see it way outdated, it hasn't been updated. Here's the thing, it hasn't been updated since 2023, because I've got the new 2022 iPads there, and then we got into 2023, and then we had a bit of a glut. But look at that, look at that, October 2022 is when I last updated this. So it is in desperate need of an update. Luckily, it still has the iPad 10th gen in there, but yeah, there's some changes to this. Obviously, we've had some new models in the last 2 years. So the iPad buyer's guide is getting updated, waiting for the M10. Yeah, that'll be a while. That'll be a while. But you can go there right now and you can check that out. If you do want to be a cool person, you can use these links here. So if you are looking for a second-hand iPad, which is not a terrible idea, the refurbished ones you get through Apple and through Amazon are actually really good. They have the same buyer protection, they have the same warranties that you would get often for a new item if you buy them directly through those refurbished options. So yeah, it's worth checking those out if you would like to, if you're in the market for a new iPad. But here's the thing, and spoiler alert of what you'll see in the guide that I put out later this week, I don't think the iPad Pro, I don't think the iPad Pro is for many people. I know. I'll have a drink to wet the whistle while you stew on that. I don't think the iPad Pro is for many people, because the M2 in the iPad Air, someone actually emailed me this week, Mike, one of the wonderful viewers of the channel, emailed me this week and said, Pete, iPad Air M2 or iPad Pro M4? Do I stretch the budget? And my recommendation right now, 100%, would be, for the vast majority of people, for probably 90% of creators using GarageBand and Logic Pro, the M4 is overkill. I think the M2 is the absolute sweet spot. So last year's Logic Pro, last year's iPad Pro, if you want the extra RAM. So last year's iPad Pro with either 1 terabyte or 2 terabyte storage will give you the 16 gigabytes of RAM and the M2. That's if you want to make sure that you kind of future-proof yourself more. Or if you want something brand new, the iPad Air finally makes sense. It's in 11-inch and 13-inch sizes now. It has USB-C. It has a nice screen. Sure, it's not the latest and greatest screen, but it's last year's screen. But for the vast majority of people, it's going to be absolutely fantastic. And going with 512 gigabytes or up to 1 terabyte for most people is going to be absolutely fine. You don't need to spend all the money. This is the problem. And it gets exponentially more expensive, doesn't it, as you go up. As someone who's buying a Mac right now, and I'm sort of in between the Mac Mini and the Mac Studio, yeah, as soon as you go, it dips up in price quite substantially. So again, you'll know if you need this stuff. If you're the sort of person that's using AUM or Audio Bus, or you're using like 15 apps at a time, or you're using all the plugins, or you're routing a whole bunch of stuff through a whole bunch of buses with all the plugins and all the AI stuff in there and all the external plugins, then yeah, maybe. But the vast majority of us aren't doing that. And if you are doing that, you know who you are, and you're the 10%. For the 90%, I think you're going to be fine with the M2 for a very long time. Yeah, we're getting the headphone jack back anytime soon. No, and I do get asked about a headphone jack a lot. To be honest, there are the little USB-C adapters that give you a headphone jack. It's not a great headphone jack. It's not high ohmage. It doesn't have a lot of power. It doesn't have a proper headphone amp in it. So really, if you're listening on headphones and you're using an iPad these days, you need an audio interface. Even if it's just an iRig Pro that has the built-in headphone amp and the headphone jack, that's better than anything you're going to get in just an adapter, including the USB-C to headphone adapter, which is fine. It does the job. But then, of course, you can't plug in any other USB-C gear if you're using that USB-C to headphone jack adapter. So, Yeah, you're kind of at the point that as soon as you want to do something serious enough that you need a pair of headphones plugged in, you kind of need an audio interface anyway. So something from RK Multimedia, one of the iRig series, or a Focusrite Scarlett, or a Steinberg UR series, all the standard ones. Behringer if you must. But if you're going to go Behringer, do me a favor and go M Audio, or go Tascam, or go one of the other budget options, because Presonus are good. Behringer just, they just don't sit right with me. I don't know. Yeah, headphone jacks. I've got a couple of things right here that have a headphone jack. So I've got the iPhone 6S that I'm about to resurrect. It's my wife's old phone, and yes, it has the headphone jack. So I'm going to get that. And my beautiful iPod Touch, the last iPod Touch ever made in red because it goes faster, of course, has the headphone jack as well. So I'll be living the lightning life myself for some time to come. Yes. Yeah, look, there's plenty of options for your audio interfaces, and I've got my recommendations at the Gear Guide, which is at studiolivetoday.com/gear, and it's worth me mentioning that if you use any of the affiliate links that I have here, they will break off a chunk and send it to me if you make a purchase. So yeah, it is very strange. I'll tell you this because I'm ranting today. It's going to be one of those days. But you have to be very particular in the way that you say things, and you'll notice that in the description of every video, every time I have an affiliate link, there's a little note there that says, if you make a purchase, these are affiliate links. If you make a purchase, a commission will be paid to me. And I have to say it like that, and I can't say, it's like that thing you say to your lawyers, I'm not able to say this. You can't actually say you'll be supporting me by doing that, because that's going to encourage people to buy things through those Amazon links and through your Sweetwater links and through other things. It's weird. You're not allowed to say, by doing that, you'll be supporting the channel. You just have to say it in really basic, plain English, which is, if you make a purchase using an affiliate link, they will pay me a commission. And you can read between the lines of that. If you're putting Chroma Glow on every track, I had to start freezing tracks on my M1 iPad Air. Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, I wasn't going to cover this in this particular show, but I got a fabulous email. I'm sure he won't mind me telling you about it because it's super relevant for you folks and for anyone that's doing this stuff. Let me just find it. Just realized I'm using my headphones today and I still had my my foldback on, which is stupid. So Scott gave me some really good tips. I'm going to run through them really quick. If you are having performance issues, I'm going to make a video on this and credit Scott to say, hey, he gave me all these ideas. And I've covered them before, but they're worth repeating. So if you are having issues like Dan is with using a lot of plugins and having to freeze your tracks, go to settings, get all those background apps off. Either go into airplane mode or go to your background apps and turn them all off. You don't need the Ticketmaster app updating that Pearl Jam ticket for some reason in the background, wasting your performance. And it's not really going to be that, but it's going to be weather, or it's going to be stocks, or there's going to be some stupid stuff using your background performance. Freezing tracks that aren't being used during recording, always a good idea. So if you don't know about freezing tracks, what that means is it'll freeze everything on that track in place, and therefore instead of having to process all the changes and all the movements on that track, it basically plays back a WAV file. It freezes it in. It kind of bounces it in place. You can play with the audio buffer. So if you're using Logic, you want low for recording and high for playback. So that means you want the buffer low so that you're getting low latency when you're recording. And when you're playing back, you can have it higher because the timing doesn't actually matter. If it takes a second to start your playback, it's fine. Compose tracks in session player, but convert them to MIDI as soon as they're finalized and move them to a duplicate final destination track to continue. So yeah, that's a really good tip. Is you can, and we'll show some of this stuff later. But you can actually, if you're using session player, not only can you convert it to MIDI, but then sometimes if you create a brand new blank MIDI track and just move that MIDI data, it removes all of that processing from before. So that can be a good additional tip. Quit project in Logic, restart with a duplicate file to purge the unwieldy, bloated project files stuffed with unnecessary cache data. Do this after working for an hour or so. So that's something that I've talked about in the past, that sometimes you get those really bloated project files that have all the cache in there, and sometimes if you just duplicate it and open that second version, you'll be looking at it going, why is the first version 600 meg and the second version 200? it's because there's all these additional recordings and things that you've deleted that it kind of keeps in there. So there's an option there. And use low latency monitoring mode religiously during recording after more than 4 to 6 tracks. Put the button on your control panel using the customized control panel. So I just thought that they were fabulous tips, and it's just an example of what you folks here in the community do, that you help me out. Like, a lot of the stuff I do here isn't my own stuff. I openly admit that I don't know everything. I know maybe 20% of what I need to know. And the other 80% comes from you folks, from being able to share the information like that. Hello to you, Dan, by the way. Hello to Princess LDG. Let's crack on and look at this studio piano, because we're 20 minutes in, and I want to play with the piano today. So unlike the opening of the show, where we had an epic fail, we have the audio on here now, and we can play with this. For whatever reason, as soon as I come over to this iPad view, the quality goes down immediately, which makes me think that maybe it's more to do with my computer than the internet. But it's a bit weird, isn't it? Yeah, new internet provider and everything. New modem, new internet provider. Yeah, we'll go through. We'll keep going through there. Thank you, my friend. Yeah, appreciate having you in the community. Let's dive in here and take a look at piano. So, firstly, I would like to invite a friend of mine. He goes by the name of Past Pete. And I'd like to invite Past Pete in here to tell us a little bit about what we're actually looking at here today. So I've just got a little video here that Past Pete created just before the show, so that you can see the setup that I'm using here. In case you're new to all this caper, you'll be able to see everything that we are using in the setup here. So Past Pete, are you there? Come in, Past Pete. He's not coming. Needs to press play. Thank you, Future Pete. We really must stop meeting like this. This is my iPad. You can see here I've got the genuine Apple USB-C adapter there. It's got power pass-through, HDMI, and a USB connection. That is going around here to the classic 10-DAC powered USB hub. That has the Steinberg UR22C and an extra cable coming too. Yeah, my old school key station 49, baby, the E keys. And then down there we have a sustain pedal with my VCR. Don't ask, it's not worth it. So this is my setup here that we'll be playing with here today. Back to you, Future Pete. Well, thank you, Past Pete. You are a gentleman and a scholar, and appreciate all of your support. So that is the setup that we have here. Get off the screen. Why can't this leave? Oh, man, I cannot close that. That's all right. We probably won't need the screen again, so I'll just leave it there. I'll leave that sitting there forever, just showing me my iPad. It's really horrible. When you see that, it's like, man, how dusty does it doesn't look that dusty until you get the camera and go close up. Wow. Yeah, Past Pete is the bomb diggity. So let's start from scratch and talk about the studio piano, because yes, we can use it with our session players, but we can use it as a straight up piano. So how do we do that? Well, let's just close out our project here. If we create a new project here in Logic Pro for iPad, and yes, before we do this, the pianos in GarageBand are fabulous. I've covered the pianos in GarageBand. There's the Studio Grand, there's the Concert Grand, there's the upright piano. They're brilliant. And if you're using GarageBand, keep using them. There's nothing wrong with them. There's also external plugins like my favorite, the Ravenscroft 275. So there's other ways you can do it. But today we're just going to look at the studio piano. So if we create a new empty project in tracks mode, here under MIDI, if we tap on the 3 dots, we can actually select a patch or instrument. And you've got a few options here. You've got all your recents up here. You've got all your Logic Pro, and you can use your audio unit instruments down here. That's your external stuff. But if you want to go in and check out the studio piano, it's under Studio Instruments, it's under Studio Piano, and then just hit Create. And you are going to get, funnily enough, a Studio Piano plugin. And it's going to default here to your Studio Grand with one mic. It's going to have the volume pretty much up to the top. And when you play it, nothing's going to happen because of reasons. Because my audio has been removed. You ever have one of those days, folks? Yeah, it's going to be one of those days. Yep. So this is a wonderful thing that the iPad does, which is every time you kind of do anything, it changes your audio routing. and it's changed my audio routing back to the HDMI, because every musician that's plugging in an audio interface definitely wants the audio to come out via the HDMI. Let's see if this has corrected the situation. There it is. It's now got the Steinberg, and we can do that. And more importantly, we can play down here on the very old school E-Keys 49. This was actually one of the very first USB. It's USB 1.1. But for MIDI, it really doesn't matter. People are like, oh, I should update my MIDI keyboard. And I'm like, why? MIDI data uses virtually no throughput at all. You get very low latency on really old stuff, so you don't have to worry about it. As long as it works, as long as the keys feel good and you have good touch sensitivity, you're absolutely fine. So I'm going to play in a little something here with this piano. Now you'll notice here that in the studio piano plugin, if we double tap, this will bring up the main plugin. I'll just put my my piano away there. So this has got all of our options here. We'll cover all of these in just a jiffy so you can learn how to use these. But you've got some presets. If we tap here where it's got the default presets, like everything, we can use these presets, except these presets will actually change the type of piano. So you can see there that you've got 3 presets for the concert grand. You've then got lots for the studio grand, and you've got lots for the vintage upright. So if you wanted to just make a change, so say you wanted less noise on your concert grand, you can tap on that one. It's going to change it to the concert grand. And down the bottom here, these settings, it's going to reduce the amount of noise. If you want no noise, put 0, and then you're going to get a pure piano sound without the additional noise. Or if you want to go to the default, it's going to give you sort of half noise. So it's going to make it more realistic, and we'll talk about what that all means in just a wee jiffy. So let us hit the metronome here and hit the record button, and I'm just going to play in something to go with. Was that well done? No, but the beautiful part of MIDI is we can edit it, can't we? We can just come in here and go and show your MIDI notes in the editor, and you can change them up here to your heart's delight. So the cool thing about using virtual instruments and using a MIDI keyboard is you can get that kind of natural feel and then fix your mistakes if they stand out. So let's play this back. So let's just fix those little notes. Where I hit an extra note there, we can just tap that, tap it again, and we can delete it. And we can tap again, and delete it. There we go. So that's going to be okay for us to try this out to start with. Let's add another one with this. Let's add a little second piano part here. So again, we can add another piano by tapping the plus. We've already got it all set up here, so we just hit it there. Let's make this a vintage upright by tapping here and going to our vintage upright piano. And now we've got the options of changing around our vintage piano sound. But we'll do that in just a jiffy. Let's just record something to go along with this. So what are we starting in C? Let's hit record here. Didn't like that. Let's try that one again. We'll go back to the start. We'll hit record. There we go. So we've now got 2 piano parts in here, and we can use these to accompany each other. So we'll get rid of that last chord there because that's sounding bad. And I realized we did some really bad stuff towards the end of this part. So I'm just going to quickly edit this and make it a little better, eh? Pretend I know how to play the piano better than I actually do. We'll get rid of that note because that one was not right. I reckon that's about right. Let's try that. There you go. So there is our little motif that we're going to play around with in this. Yeah, Yeah, just something a little bit fun, something that I like to hack around with. We'll turn off the metronome now because we don't need that as we go through. So how do we adjust our studio piano sound? Well, there's a couple of ways to do it. We can come in here to our plugin and we can just tap here and just change it straight on the plugin grid. So if we want this concert grand to actually be a studio grand, we can change it right there and it will immediately change that there. Or we can double tap on this plugin. By the way, your plugins are at the bottom here under your little plugin icon. So if you select a track, select the plugins, and then double tap, it's going to bring you into your Studio Grand. And then we can adjust a bunch of other things. So the Studio Grand, let's start with this one. In fact, we'll just solo this one so we're hearing just this piano by itself. There's a few things that we can do here. We've got 3 microphones. So there's stereo mic A, stereo mic B, and then there's a mono mic. So at the moment with stereo mic A, it's sounding like this. And if you want to go and add the second mic, let's just turn off the first mic and go with the second one. So that's more of a darker, distant kind of sound. Hear how this one's kind of bright and up front? So what we can do, though, is bring them both in together and get a richer, fuller kind of sound. And the final microphone we have here is the mono mic. So if we listen to the mono mic, if you're listening in stereo, you'll hear that that's coming right up the middle. So you won't be hearing any of those stereo effects. If you want the absolute fullest sound, you can turn all mics on at 100 and you get a nice stereo sound. And it's very rich. And the reason I played both the bass and treble part is if you look at the little meter here, you'll see that it's bouncing between the left and the right. And that's because with the stereo miking, your lower notes down here will be more on the left and your higher notes will be on the right. If you're listening, let's go all the way down here. You'll hear that that's sitting about half the way to your left. And if we come right up to here, you'll hear that that's sitting much further on your right. So that's what the stereo miking does. And if you want more of a stereo effect, turn off your mono mics. And now that one's right down there. And that one's right up there. It's not going to be 100% left and right, but you will get that stereo effect going on there. When you use your presets, so with the Concert Grand here, it will change some of that stuff. Oh, sorry, we're on the Studio Grand. It will change some of that stuff. So see the 3 mic mix here, this is giving you 75%, 59%, and 79%. So it's giving you a mix of those 3 microphones. And then if you go to the default, it's giving you 100%, but just on that first stereo mic. So if you want the 3 mic mix for a bit more kind of texture, you can go with that, or you can go with this one. Now, you could also go with mono, which means it's just using that mono mic, or simply mono for just the mono. And wood gives you not the first mic, but just those second 2. So the wood preset just gives you a sound that's more woody. It's got more of the body of the piano as opposed to the keys. And that one's actually not a bad one if we're doing this where we've got a lead part as well, and we're doing more like a piano concerto with a couple of pianos. You can get some good contrast between the low down and the high up piano. There you go. So that's not a bad preset for that. Now, there's a whole bunch of other options. You're like, what do all these other things do here? What am I going to do playing with all these noise settings? Well, your different pianos have different noise options. Your Concert Grand doesn't have any of the microphones, so that's just going to be a really crisp, clear piano sound. Again, if we bring this back in. So it's a really sort of clear, crisp sound. Let's look at all these noise options. All right, so we've got pedal noise. Now, you can very faintly hear with the pedal noise at 80%. If I turn that all the way up to 100, I'm going to turn my mic off. Just listen. I'm going to tap it. I'm going to do an SOS sound. Don't worry, I'm not in trouble. But I'm going to go tap, 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 and listen for the pedal sound. There you go. Weirdest segment that we've ever had here. So that is your pedal noise. Let's go to the next one. This is your key noise. So this is a little bit harder to detect, but if we tap it with the key noise completely off, you're hearing just the sound of the note. As we turn this up, what I'm going to do is I'm going to tap and I'm going to turn this up. Listen for the key noise. Hear that knocking? And like a real piano, this is why this is so cool. Because it's sampling a real piano, that you hear a little bit of key noise when you hit it, the key, but the majority of the noise is when you lift. When you lift from the key, it actually hears that key sound. So with that at 100%, you're going to get a lot of that. You've got this one. This is your released sample. So the best way to demonstrate this is if I play a chord with that down, and when I release, in fact, what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the key noise, because otherwise we're going to be hearing that and not the rest of it. So I'm going to turn off the key noise and I'm going to turn off the pedal noise just so that we can hear this sample release. So I'm going to actually play this without any sustain when we release, and then let's turn it up. So if we turn the release samples all the way up, hear that? Hear that? It's actually it's the release of the hammer. So think of a piano. If you've never looked inside a piano, it's little felt hammers hitting strings. Yeah, the piano is a stringed instrument. Who knew it? So yeah, it's when you play it. And the more notes you play, so let's just see if we can do a full chord here. Yeah, you get a little bit of that. So that's what that is for. I know it's subtle. You'll need to dive in and play around with this stuff to hear it properly, because YouTube is going to be compressing the crud out of this. Sympathetic resonance. Again, let's turn everything to 0%. Except, that was 1. Won't make much difference. But sympathetic resonance. So this is the resonance within the actual piano body itself. So with this off, it's a very clean sound. If we turn the sympathetic resonance all the way up, now take a listen. You're getting those harmonics, you're getting that resonance that goes through the rest of the piano. The best way to do this is to turn it, and I'm just going to play a chord and turn this around. Check it. Hear how it's adding some harmonics? So here it is without the sympathetic resonance. And I'm going to add it real quick. It's adding now. Subtle, right? Super subtle, but yeah, it's worth experimenting with this stuff. Now, if you don't know where you should set any of this, no problem. Just grab your presets. So with the Concert Grand, you can just go with the less noise preset, and it'll give you 20% pedal noise, 20% key noise, 40% of that the sample release, and 60% of the sympathetic resonance. And you're going to get a nice basic kind of sound. So that's cool. Let's go through that. So that's your concert piano. A lot simpler than the other ones. Let's go to our studio grand piano. So if we use our preset, whoop, we've lost it. Well, have we crashed it? Did we crash it? Wow. It's like you've been playing around with this too much, Johns. And you haven't had enough things go wrong in this show. So we're going to actually crash in your whole Logic. So it happens. Or is it just, no, we've got no response. This is a good example. What do we do when there's no response in Logic? Well, the first thing to do is to close it. So flick up, flick it away, and then just tap on it to reopen it. Turn it off and on, right? Hello, San Moran1. Logic Pro auto-saved. Yay! See, this is one of the benefits of Logic Pro for iPad over GarageBand iPad. It did auto-save our little project here, which we hadn't even saved at all yet, which is good. Let's just make sure it's working. Yep, we're good. So let's go back into our studio piano here, and we will go to the presets by tapping there and go to Studio Grand. All right, here we go. So the Studio Grand has a few additional options that our original Concert Grand does not have. Primarily these microphones, which we've already worked through. And then you've got a main volume here. You've got pedal noise, you've got key noise, you've got the same release samples and sympathetic resonance that you have in the other pianos. The only difference here is that this one has your mic options. So instead of it just being the one straight Concert Grand that's been sampled, you can choose the mix of the different microphones, and you can do that by using these different presets that you have here. So not much else to show with the studio piano there. The final type is actually kind of funky. It's the vintage upright, and this one again has the same miking setup. It has the same noise, but it's just a different piano. It's just a differently sampled piano, and you can get different types here. So your living room piano is just going to be with your stereo B and then your main mix, and it's going to be quite noisy. You can have a really noisy mono piano, so you want that old school honky tonk sound. You can have like a... You can get that kind of real sort of honky tonk. A recording room if you want something cleaner for doing like... I actually really like that sound. You can have the wood, again, if you want to feel and hear more of the actual sound of the wood of the piano. Much more organic sound. Yeah, very cool. Lot of stuff. Yeah, the upright, I agree with you, Thomas. The upright is probably my go-to. Even though it doesn't get as much love as many of the others, it's really cool. It just has that sound of like... All right, better not play. If I play too much Ben Folds, I'm definitely going to get a Content ID claim. Hello, Conan, drum band. Hope everyone's doing well. I'm getting better, mate. The voice still doesn't sound fabulous, but I'm definitely on the mend. I'm on the repair. Yeah, I reckon it does sound a bit more realistic too. I think it just has that. I don't know, maybe because I grew up with upright pianos in my house, that it just sounds more real. I never had access to a Studio Grand or a Concert Grand piano. So that's probably where I'm at. All right, so there's that little part. Now, of course, we can use other things. We can use the session player. If you're not a keyboard player, you don't have a MIDI keyboard, do not fret. Logic Pro to the rescue, my friends. So all we need to do to add our session piano player is to tap the plus, go to session player, get the drop down here, hit our keys, and then tap on it. And there we go. We've got our session player. Now, how does this interact with our studio piano? Well, I'm glad you asked. It's here in our plugins. It's right there. So yes, it has a bunch of other stuff here. It's got the channel EQ, it's got compressor, it's got chroma verb on here, but the actual instrument here is the piano. Now, I showed a recent video where I showed how you can remove this. You can take the studio piano off and see how there's no instrument on there now. You can add any instrument you like back in here. You can add strings, you can add an external piano, you can add horns, you can use any different instrument that you like. You can throw it straight in there. So if you wanted to make this your strings instead, you can actually just have your strings in there instead of the piano. But today we're talking studio piano, so we'll add back in the studio piano. By the way, how to do that? Let's just go back a step, because I know some people accuse me of going too fast with these things sometimes. You've got your session player, you tap the plugins button in the middle at the bottom, and then where it's got the studio piano, up in the top right, hit your edit button. That's going to go into edit mode, hit the little minus sign, that's to delete it, and then hit the plus, and then choose what instrument you want to add back in. Once you're happy with it, tap the edit button to go back to your regular view. And then you can hit play. And you get that very standard. The only problem with this is that because it has, I've watched maybe 20 tutorials about the session players, and that's the default that it uses for its chord progression, and it just gets a bit boring after a while, doesn't it? I'm saying that about myself too, because I've been using it. But what we can do is we can actually add in a chord track. Not what we're covering in this, but it's relevant to this because it's something you want to do if you're going to create a piece using the studio piano. So let's drop down the chord track. We do that by tapping here on the little drop down button there. You can hit the 3 dots here and go to customize your global tracks if you want to say have your marker track or your tempo or your time or your key sig, or if you want multiple, you can do that. So say I want my key signature and my chords track, I can have them both there at the top, just like that. So these are actually wrong because this part, these piano parts I played actually have a C, D minor, E minor, F. So we can actually adjust that. And there's a couple of ways to do it. We can adjust it here on our main chord track at the top, or we can add it as a chord track to this particular piano part and then make it go global. Yeah, how do we do that? So let's go back to our edit mode by tapping the edit button to the bottom here. We'll turn off our plugin for now because we don't need it. And we can actually add in a chord track to this one here. How do we do that? Why have I not got the chords option here? Why am I being lied to by myself? Why have I forgotten how to do that? We've got the automation here, but I thought we had a chords track in here. Okay, apparently we don't. Apparently if we haven't added it there. See how on this one we do have a chords track? That's weird. I was sure that we had the option to add a chords track directly to a MIDI performance, but I guess it's only if we bring in a MIDI performance that already has chords attached to it. Very odd. We learn as we go. That is fine. All right, let's turn that one down. So we're going to have to do it the other way around, which is to change our global chords. So no problem. We'll just tap on these ones, just delete out all these old suckers. They're wrong. Let's hit the plus button here. We know that this starts on a C, and we could just go C here and root note C, or we can actually play in a C if we use this option here, use MIDI input. Look at this. I can just play my C or D minor or E minor or F. This makes it really quick to enter things in. Let's turn it up a bit so you hear these a bit better. So there's our C. That's where we want our C. And then we go to the next chord here. And then see, this is the problem. You need to use MIDI input on. I think you have to do that every time, do you? Excuse me. Yep. See, this is a problem. This is something I need to put in as a feature request, because if you're doing this over and over again, why would you, every time you add a new chord, why would you want it to turn off use MIDI input? So it still doesn't take a long time, but it's just a pain. Like, why would they do that? And then we'll just go back to C at the end there. All right. So now what you'll find is that this piano is going to play along with the chords that we already have, because I know that my personal piano, let's just move this down a notch. The piano part that I played in, tap and hold, drag. The piano part that I played in is in C, D minor, E minor, F. So these should all now play together. And now, because this one's doing a bit of melody line action in here, I'm going to turn off my melody because it's sort of conflicting. It's not playing the same melody. Pretty cool, yeah? And then if we wanted to, we could just loop out mine by grabbing the loop tool here and just looping this out to give ourselves a full array there. And then we can, we need to extend these chords. So what we would do is move this one, turn the loop off, grab this chord, pull it back to there, and then these are grouped together. So let's see, is our copy and paste of chords going to work? This is a bit, sometimes works, sometimes doesn't. There you go, it has worked. So now we've got 8 bars of these chords, and it will play all these together with my studio piano along with this one. We can then, of course, adjust the keyboard player by coming in here to our edit mode and adjust this to however we want. So if we wanted this to do like a I don't know, let's do some arpeggiated stuff here. Let's just change this really randomly. Let's turn the complexity up and the intensity up. But instead of using the chord rhythm, let's turn off the chord rhythm and make it follow our original track. So this way, it's actually following this vintage grand, and it's going to create a piano part based around my piano part. Let's see what this does, shall we? We'll come back down to here so we can see it and play. And the cool thing about this is I can play something in with my amateur skills and then get the keyboard player to play it a bit better. So if I want to turn me off and bring my melody back in now. Hopefully you hear that that sounds a bit better than what I had originally because it's playing. So yeah, look, maybe it doesn't have the same sort of human feel, but don't forget, you got all those sort of options in here. Yeah, we can humanize this a bit. We can come in here into our details section and we can say, yeah, let's make that a bit more humanized, shall we? Let's add in a bunch more ghost notes as well. And if we wanted it to be sort of lower down, because I've got that little sort of higher part, we can bring that down. Maybe we want the right hand to only do 2 voices instead of the full chords so that we get something more like this. Okay, the ghost notes really don't work with that, do they? Ghost notes don't work with an arpeggio. Pretty good. I think we need a little bit more dynamic in this. So this is why the session player is so good, because look at this. Okay, now it's a little too human, right? So you can start experimenting with this stuff and do some cool things. So let's just build this out. We'll loop this. Let's just finish off. How long have we got? 10 minutes. Let's finish off by just having some fun with this, shall we? So. I reckon at this second part we need to add in like a harmonized piano part. So let's add in something else here. So we can go to the plus button here. Let's go to our Studio Grand piano again, and let's we need to solo it. That's right, not freeze. All right. So we're just going to play in a part up here on the G this time. All right, do those notes work? Somewhat, but here's the beauty part. Yeah, I know I keep repeating myself, but I just need it to reinforce it that when you're songwriting, using something like this can really just help out. Now, it's done the oldest problem in the book that we have here, which is that when you play at the start there, it doesn't capture, even though it's going to play it. Listen to this. Okay, it didn't play at that time. So sometimes when you record and you play a note right at the start, you just need to shift the start because it looks like I've actually played this in slightly early. Yeah, I have. So it's a thing. I don't know why it doesn't just adjust for that. It's never done it. So that note needs to be different. So we'll edit it. So let's play these notes again. I think they sound good with that. I reckon it goes up to the... Yeah, we'll use the B there because it'll have a nice sort of complement there. And we'll just delete that last one because it doesn't really belong. So this is sounding good. What do we need now? We need a pad, don't we? Like this needs a beautiful string pad below it to go along with it. And we can do that using our session player. It's not technically the Studio Grand, but it's using our keyboard player. Let's add a session player here. This time we want to add a pad. So we'll tap this, we'll go to pad. The pad's going to change our instrument to the classic analog pad, but do not stress, we can change that. Let's tap in the bottom left here. And out of plugin presets, we'll tap back and we'll go to instrument patches. Now, what do we want? We want some sort of string pad here. So we'll just type string there and we will go with, what should we go with? The bent synth? Maybe not. Maybe just classic strings. That might work. We'll turn on our input mode here and we'll go classic strings. And that's going to change this instrument here. So it's still going to be our pad, but it's going to be using those strings. Let's take a listen. Yeah, those strings sound a bit cranky, don't they? They're not the sort of realistic strings we're looking for here. But no worries. We could do the same trick we did before. Remember how I showed you how we can come in here and change this? Well, this is actually using a sample alchemy instrument. Yeah, believe it or not, this is a sample alchemy instrument as the patch. We can change that by tapping the edit button, getting rid of that, tapping our instrument, and bringing in our studio strings. Yeah, let's bring in these nice stereo studio strings. And I actually want this to not be violins, but I'd actually love this to be some strings ensemble. There we go. Let's see what this sounds like now. Not bad, but these need to come lower. So we can just adjust that here. We can go back to our edit mode and using the hands, which is a bit weird because they're actually strings, we can bring this down lower. And what do we want? We want I reckon we want the root and the fifth just to make this sound a little bit better. The voicing, we actually want to go the fixed inversion with this just to give it some variety. Let's see what this sounds like now. Not bad. Not bad there. I still think this arpeggio still sounds a bit weird and wacky, doesn't it? So again, we can edit that. We can play with this to our heart's content. It is a fun thing to do here. But how good is your studio piano? Now, I know, don't get stressed out if you're still using GarageBand. There's still some great piano sounds that you can use. Within GarageBand, there is still some excellent external instrument options that you can use within GarageBand as well. Things like the Ravenscroft and there's plenty. I don't use many of them. I love Ravenscroft and I love now the Logic pianos. So I use mostly them. But there's a heap of different things we can do. What do we got? We've got about 3 minutes left to go. If you do have any final questions, feel free to ask those right here in the chat, and we will finish off in just a jiffy. I'm just going to make sure that you will be sent to, I'm going to send you to next week's show, because for those that are watching live, that are like, where's your GarageBand at, Johns? I thought this was GarageBand Weekly. Why do you keep showing Logic Pro? We're going back to GarageBand next week. When Logic Pro introduces cool new features like this, I'm going to cover it for a few weeks, and that's what I've done. But you would recall that back in April and May, I was covering GarageBand a lot. So, yeah. We got some good collaboration going on with KVK here and Leela in the chat. Very good stuff. Hello to other folks that I saw drop on in here. I'm just scrolling back up the chat to make sure I didn't miss anything. No, hello to you. Yeah, San Moran, I saw you here. Yeah, amazing for songwriters. I write an acoustic guitar. I don't play piano much and certainly not a drummer. Minimal bass, this lets me build the song structure. Love it. Yeah, it's very cool. It works a treat. I dig it. There you go. That's your studio piano. Hope you're going well. There you go. Today's your 20th birthday for Scott Kid 64. That makes me 2.5 times older than you. Is that right? Something like that. Yeah. It's a sky blue, grey, or both. I actually see it as green. I'm a bit weird like that. But then again, I don't see in 3 dimensions, so don't trust my vision. That's what I say. Yeah, I know. I think that the studio piano, the studio bass, and the updated drummers, I mean, I guess that's all of them. But the studio pianos actually do sound delightful. So play around with them and explore them, and I think you'll get some fun things going on there. All right, I'm going to go and rest my voice for a couple of days, folks, but I'll be back. We've got the podcast happening this Thursday evening or Friday morning, depending where you are in the world. We've then got another happy hour doing Australian music, Aussie, 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 oi, oi, oi. We've got GarageBand Weekly, where we're back to GarageBand next week. And don't forget, Your Music Live, playing your best indie tunes. But that is going to do it for now. As we say at the end of each and every show, please be kind to yourself, be kind to others, keep creating, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.